Hey everyone, before we get started, we wanted to list some trigger warnings for today's book and our episode. The book we're discussing today includes alcohol abuse, death, murder, bombing, homophobia, racism, and sexual assault. If any of those topics are uncomfortable for you, please take that into consideration before starting this episode or reading this book. A full list of trigger warnings will be linked in the episode description. That being said, we're glad that you've joined us today, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of I'm Not the Book Expert, but She Is. I'm your host, Maggie.
And I'm your other host, Rachel.
And today, Rachel is the book expert because I certainly am not.
And technically, we are continuing with the duology from last week, which was One of Us is Lying. And today we are doing One of Us is Next, which is the first sequel. Technically, there will be another one, but not for another year. So this is still a duology, which is why it counts.
And I feel like these books act almost as standalones in some way. So I feel like we're fine. We're in the clear. If anyone has any complaints about it, they can DM us and I will not read them. I mean, I will read them, but I won't answer them.
Yeah, we'll read the other DMs, the nice DMs.
Mm-hmm. Or if you have constructive criticism, but this would not fall under that.
That does not fall under this category. So, Maggie, before we get started, I have a question for you.
You have a question for me.
Do you want to tell the people what you have recently read? I think that's kind of a cool little thing to start out with.
Oh, what I've recently read?
Yeah.
I totally forgot every book I've ever read for like 30 seconds. So let me try that. Let's see. So last night I couldn't sleep. And I ended up staying up till 3 a.m. to finish Lake's Edge by Lyndall. I'm forgetting her last name. I just went to Goodreads to check. It's not going to show up there. I think it's Lyndall Clipstone. Oh, look, I was right. So yes, that's her name. So I just finished that. That was pretty good. I'm still kind of sorting out my feelings on that because I finished reading it at 3 a.m. and I haven't felt like a human being most of the day.
Legit.
Until now. So I just finished reading that earlier this month. We're still in the beginning of January. The other 2 books I've read so far, I reread These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and then I read the sequel, Our Violent Ends, which I absolutely loved, and I have a lot of emotions about that I'm still sorting out, but it was a very good book, and I was very satisfied by the ending of that duology. So, Rachel, what have you been reading lately?
So I want to preface this by saying it is currently January 9th.
As we record this will not be released on January 9th, so we're clear.
The day we are recording it is January 9th, and I have finished 9 books.
She has read a book for every day of the year so far.
In my defense, I have not finished a book every day. There have been a couple of days where I finished 2 books, and a couple of days where I did not finish any. Yeah, I've also had several snow days, so I haven't been working for most of this past week, which was really nice. But that sounds lovely. It was very lovely, and it brought me a lot of joy. But I reread the Truly Devious series, which is like my comfort series from this past year, and I love it, and it makes me cry. I also finished another series, and I was not satisfied with the ending, so I'm just not even going to talk about it. But Maggie, you're Rachel, so proud of me.
I'm so proud.
I finally finished Little Thieves.
Yay! And for those who haven't been following along, which, why haven't you? You should go back and listen to our other episodes. But Little Thieves was my favorite book that I read in 2021. And I was begging Rachel. She was going to read it anyway, but I was like, Rachel, you need to read this so I can talk to somebody about it. And she finally finished it. And I'm so excited because it's
there are lots of feelings.
Yes. So,
and I also want to point out the reason I have been able to read so many books so far is that I've been listening to a lot of them as audiobooks as I've been doing laundry and while I've been doing dishes and like all the stuff that I hate doing. And it has made it a little bit more bearable.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I liked when I reread These Violent Delights. I reread that as an audiobook. Mostly because I had read it once already and I just wanted to remember like the main plot points. But that was really nice because I could listen to it while I was like cleaning up and like I was putting away Christmas decorations and things like that. So that's a really nice plus to audiobooks.
I was listening to one of the Truly Devious books, can't remember which one, while shoveling snow off of my driveway this week.
That sounds interesting.
It was a little miserable.
But at least you had Stevie with you.
At least I had Stevie and David and Nate and Janelle. Yeah. Maggie, I can't wait to do those as a podcast.
I know. I'm very excited for them too.
I love them so much.
I know you do.
But it's okay. It's okay. I'm good. I'm not going to cry. It's all good.
We can always cry later. There's plenty of time for crying in this podcast.
This is true. And we might be crying about this book because it gave me feelings. Are we surprised? Not at all.
No, but
so One of Us is Next, just as a reminder, is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. And
which are by Karen M. McManus.
Yes, they are. And they are 2 of her currently 6 books published, I want to say. So One of Us is Lying, One of Us is Next, The Cousins, Two Can Keep a Secret, You'll Be the Death of Me, and I think there's one more, or there's only 5 books. Regardless, there's another one coming out this year and then another one coming out the next year. Maggie, did you just look it up because you gave me
I am looking at it right now. Okay, so she has, this is laid out in a weird way and my brain isn't counting. Okay, so she has 6 books out currently.
Which one did I forget?
Wait. No, this one might not be coming out. Okay, this one doesn't, never mind. She has 5 books out currently.
Okay, and then there's one coming out this summer.
The one coming this year is Nothing More to Tell. That comes out at the end of August in 2022. I said the wrong year. And then One of Us is Back, which will be the 3rd book in the One of Us is Lying series, comes out in 2023. But again, as Rachel already said, we're treating this as a duology because right now it is a duology and we make the rules around here.
And I can kind of proudly say that I have not read anything about One of Us is Back because I don't want to know. I want to go in blind and see what happens.
There isn't even anything out about it yet. It just says it's the 3rd and final Bayview book.
3rd and final?
I mean, we also thought that what was the final? We also thought The Hand on the Wall was
the final time we were going to see Stevie.
And then we got The Box in the Woods. So you never know.
And Maureen Johnson's working on a 5th one.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait. I love it. But so Karen M. McManus, who's the author we're currently talking about, is one of my automatic reads. Like if she wrote something, I will read it. So this year, that she was one of my first reads of the year, actually.
Of 2021, you mean?
Of 2022.
Oh.
Her book,
oh, right, because you, right.
What is it?
Is it You'll Be the Death of Me?
Yeah. Did I read that this year or did I read it last year?
I think you read it last year. I think you read it last year because you were texting me.
Now.
Hold on. Just hear me out. You were texting me about that book while I was at Barnes and Noble on New Year's Eve.
Yes, it was one of my last 2 books that I read. That makes sense, actually. So she was one of my first and one of my final reads for this year. Because I read Two Can Keep a Secret. I think that was my 2nd or 3rd book of 2021. And then one of my final books of 2021.
That's a nice way to bookend things.
It really is. But Maggie, do you want to read the little not quite synopsis for us?
Sure. I still don't know how I feel about the sentences I wrote for it, but we're just going to read it. And
I mean, mine aren't particularly good, so.
Okay. So I will introduce us to One of Us is Next. What happens at Bayview High School after the events of Simon Kelleher's death? Spoilers, Simon Kelleher dies and one of us is lying.
That happens
not
in
really
chapter
a
1, so
spoiler.
that's not much of a spoiler.
It is not a spoiler. Anyway, what about a giant game of truth or dare? Instead of following the same characters as one of us is lying, we follow 3 new-ish Bayview students as they participate in the school-wide truth or dare. It's all fun and games until a Bayview student dies while performing a dare and the stakes are raised. Will Maeve, Knox, and Phoebe be able to find out who's behind the game before anyone else gets hurt, while also dealing with like a gazillion other personal issues in their lives? So that's where we're at. And then just as a reminder, before I forget, we will be keeping most of our conversation spoiler free as we go through it. And then sort of as we kind of wind down towards the end, we might get into some bigger plot twists and spoilers, and we'll give another warning before we do that. But for the most part, if you haven't read One of Us is Next, you should still be able to sit with our conversation. But if, you know, we highly recommend this book and its prequel. So if you're interested, definitely read those.
And I think just like with our last episode, kind of the first bit or the first part is going to be us talking about the individual characters and how they relate to each other. And then the second bit will be more plot based, or plot placed, as I wanted to say the first time.
Pot placed.
It's a spoonerism. That's what those are called. One of my favorite fun facts. It was a Jeopardy question once and I got it correct and everybody looked at me like I was insane.
Did I ever tell you about that? Go ahead.
So it just, the like category was isms and they were just going through the categories and I went, oh, a spoonerism. And then the first answer that they got was like, this Protestant preacher coined this term for when you flip. And I was like, oh, it's a spoonerism.
I love that. I had one of those moments once when we were watching Jeopardy. So you know how like they when they get to Final Jeopardy, they announce the categories and they go to commercial and then they read the answer. So one time the category was like fictional, like female characters or something like that. And I'm just like lounging on the couch as I'm like, Katniss Everdeen. And then sure enough, we go to commercial, we get the commercial about the eggs or whatever they always have on Jeopardy. And then we come back and they're reading the clue. And I'm like, holy crap, it is Katniss. It was like something about her name being a plant or something like that. I don't remember the exact clue, but I was like, that was my one moment of psychic ability.
We as a family, for as long as I can remember, have always guessed the Final Jeopardy answer based on the category. So as soon as the category is stated, we say something and then we talk about it through the commercial break and then we try to answer it once it comes up, like once the clue comes up. For as long as I can remember. That's always how my family's played Jeopardy.
I love that.
Yeah. But that was enough total about tangent.
Jeopardy. But I enjoyed talking about Jeopardy with you.
As much as I love Jeopardy, which is a lot, this is not actually a Jeopardy podcast. So
that'll be our next venture.
Yes, we will watch Jeopardy nightly and give live reactions to everything.
Indeed. There we go. Send us a tweet if you would be interested in a Jeopardy podcast. It probably won't happen anytime soon, but you never know.
We could get so popular and have Ken Jennings on. I have loved Ken Jennings since I was little.
Rachel's having a fangirl moment.
Okay. Whew. I think I'm good.
So we were going to start with talking about the characters of One of Us is Next. And I just wanted to start off our conversation. I wanted to say, I may have mentioned this in the last episode too, but I am just so impressed with how well Karen M. McManus writes her characters. I think that's what, I mean, the mystery in these books is so good. Like, always kept me guessing. I never really knew where things were headed, not in a I was confused kind of way, just like she was very good at unwinding the mystery. But what really impressed me about her books was how well she writes these characters. And so I am very excited to talk about them.
I agree. So actually the first character that I had to talk about was Maeve Rojas, because she is a returning character.
Yeah. So
I love
Maeve
Maeve.
was in One of Us is Lying. She's Bronwyn's younger sister. And
Mhm.
now she's a main character, which is what she deserves.
Yes, Maeve is obviously her own main character, but I really truly like Maeve. I might like Maeve more than I like Bronwyn.
Oh, I could agree with you on that.
And I don't know if it's just because Bronwyn kind of irritates me in this book, or if I just like Maeve more because she's a little bit sassier. It doesn't matter. She is still very computer savvy. And we get to learn a lot more about her background, especially with her leukemia diagnosis as a younger child. We knew about that in One of Us is Lying, but we really kind of got to see her perspective in her leukemia journey. And I very much related to her dark humor surrounding her illness.
Yeah.
So much.
I felt like in One of Us is Lying, we only really got to see I mean, we did only get to see Maeve through the eyes of Bronwyn, usually, and occasionally another character, but it was really only through Bronwyn. And my feelings about Bronwyn are complicated, but I think it is fair to say that she has almost an overprotective tendency towards Maeve and almost tends to like, I didn't really think of this until after we started getting Maeve's perspective in this book, but it almost seemed like Bronwyn was always, and I don't think she meant this in a bad way. It seemed like she was always treating Maeve as more fragile than she really was.
I definitely agree with that. Sorry for
And
my
so,
awkward pause.
oh no, it was fine. I had a really awkward pause in the middle of the sentence, so you're fine. But yeah, I thought it was really nice to see like Maeve as herself and who she is, and that she's not like this fragile is the best word I can think of, which is not really what I'm looking for, but like not this person who necessarily needs to be protected or like guarded like Bronwyn is of her.
I feel like Bronwyn very much treated her like a princess locked in a tower.
Yes, that is a good way to put it.
And Maeve was like, no, no, no. I am the knight who saves myself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, all that to say, I do still like Bronwyn. My feelings about her are just complicated.
Yes. If I had to pick a Rojas sister, I would pick Maeve.
Mm-hmm.
Because Maeve is still incredibly intelligent. She just doesn't base her entire identity around her intelligence.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was really relatable of her that like we kind of see over the course of this story how Maeve isn't really sure where she's going in some ways. Like she is in a family that is very, you have to figure out what you're doing. Like this is, you are picking a path and you are sticking to it. And Maeve is just kind of like, well, why don't I just let me try this? She's a very I will try anything once kind of person.
Yeah. And I think part of it that sets her apart from the rest of her family is she had so many medical scares as a young child. She's kind of playing catch up, right? And she's still working on that. She wants to try these things and make those mistakes. But then also being Bronwyn's sister, Bronwyn had to make up for a lot of that stuff and grow up really quickly because Maeve was so sick when they were both younger. So you can definitely see that reflected in their personalities. And I think that is very accurate to real life.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I love Maeve.
I do too.
But Maeve ends up getting drafted into the Truth or Dare game. And she, like, you get a text message. That's how you get drafted into the game. And you pick Truth or Dare. And she did not pick either. So her truth was revealed.
Yeah, actually, can we rewind a little bit? Because I want to talk about the
Yeah.
truth or dare game real quick, just to
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
set a baseline, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Go ahead.
Okay. So they kind of, I'll give you the TLDR version, Spark Notes version. So in the months after the whole Bayview 4 thing and Simon and yada yada yada, there's been all these copycats of like whatever Simon's website was called. I can't remember the title.
About that.
Yes, that. So there's been a bunch of copycats and they've all been squashed pretty quickly. And then this new text messaging game pops up and all the students at Bayview get a text that's inviting them to play a game of truth or dare. And so they individually text certain students in the school and give them an option, truth or dare. If they choose the dare, they have to decide within 24 hours, I think it is, right? Or some sort of arbitrary amount of time. So they have to decide. If they don't decide, their truth will be exposed. And so if you pick the dare, you'll be sent to dare and you have to perform the dare within, I guess, another 24 hours, or you can choose truth and have your truth exposed. But again, if you don't choose either, your truth will be exposed either way.
We actually don't know how long you have to complete the dare because everybody that we see directly and get their perspective of doesn't choose.
Oh, that's right.
And the people who do choose, air quotes around it, take the dare.
Right.
Maeve doesn't choose and her secret is revealed, but her secret isn't just her secret.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say what her secret is until we talk about the character that's also involved in that secret.
Yes.
And I think that's fair.
I think that is fair.
But Maeve has a massive crush on Luis, who is also a returning character from the last book, and he's Cooper Clay's best friend. But we'll talk about him a little bit later.
Well, do you want to talk about Luis real quick?
We can do that.
Let's talk about Luis real quick.
My very first note in all capital letters is I love Luis. So just saying.
Yeah. So, and as Rachel said, so he's best friends with Cooper from the last book. We actually saw I think we saw a lot of him in One of Us is Lying. So he's a little bit older than some of our other main characters, like a year.
He has just graduated.
Yeah. And we like him because he was one of the few people who stood by Cooper when he was outed in One of Us is Lying. So we like him a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
one of the main reasons he is in this book so heavily is because Maeve does most of her work at the cafe that his parents own. And he is one of their main employees. So he's there all the time. He's kind of known as a flirt. And he's always kind of talking to Maeve. And Maeve is like, man, he is kind of nice to look at. And everybody else is like, no, really. He makes eyes at you all the time. You two like each other. Do something about it. And she's just like, I just like looking at him. Girl, pull yourself together. He likes you too. Luis is just such a sweet person. And I love him.
I was
Maggie,
really
do you have
glad.
anything?
I was just going to say, I was really glad that he came up more in this book. He was one of the characters from One of Us is Lying that I would have been happy to see more about. So I was glad that even if he wasn't like a main point of view character, we still got to see more of him and he was more involved in the story. So I was pleased.
He was one of the people I tracked, or the things I tracked. So he got his own flaggy color and he was green. And I went through more green flaggies than I was expecting to for tracking in this book.
I also feel like it's worth pointing out that when Rachel did her notes for One of Us is Lying, she picked green for Nate, which is her favorite character. And so I think it says a lot that Luis also gets the honor of being the green tabs in this book. Or it might just say that.
I didn't even realize that.
Or it might just say that she was running low on green tabs and she knew she wouldn't need as many for Luis. I'm not sure.
No, because I started with a new book of tabs with this book, so I had no regards for colors. But so just to talk about colors real fast, I picked the same color for Maeve as I did for Bronwyn because they're sisters. Knox, who we're going to talk about in a second, I knew I wanted his color to be blue because Knox, night, dark.
It feels like a blue color, like a blue
Yes.
name.
Yes. I wanted to keep orange as my notes category, and I wanted to keep pink as my, air quotes, bad guy tracker. So my
Gotcha.
colors for Phoebe were either going to be yellow or purple, and Maeve was already a purple color, so I picked yellow for Phoebe. Or I could have picked green, but I wanted it. Phoebe's not a green color.
Phoebe feels like a yellow, like a bright, warm color.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
And I even debated with my students what to do with the green one. I said, do I want to pick green and keep green as Nate, because Nate also plays a prominent role in this book, or make him the love interest? And my boys were like, love interest.
You didn't tell me that. I love that.
It was just like, they were so definitive. They were like, no, Miss Lori, love interest. So yeah, that's how Luis was green.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about Knox and Phoebe then?
Yes. Do you want to start with Knox?
Sure, let's start with Knox. I love Knox.
Because then we can talk about the secret then too.
Yes. So
I also love Knox.
I really like Knox. The minute he appeared on the page, I was like, yep, I'm gonna like him. I do not have that reaction with every character. But yes. Can
I make a comment about you liking characters?
Sure.
I feel like it goes one of 4 ways. You
Okay.
see a character, you love them.
Mm-hmm.
You see a character, you hate them, and those stay.
Okay.
Or you see a character and you're like, I don't like them, and then you end up loving them. Or you have I see a character, I like them, JK, never mind, they are the scum of the earth. And there is no middle ground. I cannot think of a single character where you're like, they were all right.
I think that's fair. Feeling a little bit exposed, but that's fine.
It comes from a place of love.
Tune in next week for another episode of Psychoanalysis with Rachel and Maggie.
Who needs therapy when you can do a podcast with your best friend?
Aww. That's so sweet. I am not a qualified therapist, though.
Are we ready to talk about Knox? Because I have feelings.
Let's talk about Knox. So he's a new character. Although I will say, I do think he kind of gets vaguely alluded to at the end of One of Us is Lying.
I think he's kind of mentioned, but I don't know if he's mentioned by name.
Oh, definitely not by name. I was just thinking, so he's best friends with Maeve, and he's a theater kid.
Surprise.
At the end of One of Us is Lying, it's mentioned that Maeve is involved in like the musical or the play at school. I don't know if it's a musical or a play. I know there's a difference. Don't at me in the comments, okay? And I think Bronwyn like briefly mentions like, oh, Maeve might have a sort of thing going on with like this guy who's like the male lead in the play or whatever it is. And so, but we don't really like, it's just kind of a throwaway line. And then we actually do get to meet Knox in this book. He is the youngest of 5 siblings. He has 4 older sisters, and they all have K names.
And the next sister in age range is 10 years older than him.
So he's the baby.
He is very much the baby. I think I'm justified in saying that he was a whoopsie baby. Because
I think
he even says that.
I think he says that outright.
He was like, yeah, so I have my four older siblings. The oldest one's 30, and then they were each born one after the other. And then I came along 10 years later, and everybody was like, whoop, there he is.
There he is.
So Knox is spelled with a K. You just don't say Knox. But all of his sisters
Knox
also have K names, and he is closest with his older sister, oldest sister, which I think is really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not. His whole family isn't super, super close together. Like, they're close, but not like there every second of every day.
Yeah. And he's an intern, an unpaid intern, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
very unpaid.
Y'all getting paid internships in this economy?
Seriously.
He's an intern at Until Proven with Eli, who's from the last book. He's the one who helped get Nate out of prison and everything there. So that's sort of his connection to the story.
Yes. So I think we should talk about the secret, and then we can talk a little bit more about his dad. Does that work for you?
Yeah. Take it away.
So the big secret, the secret that is revealed when Maeve doesn't play, is that
the truth or dare game.
Yes, the truth or dare game. She and Knox tried to lose their virginity to each other, but Knox was having some issues. And he was nervous and could not perform. So everybody starts to make like limp noodle jokes at school.
He is broadly mocked at school when this is exposed.
Which I want to say, there is no shame in your sex exploration in this case. There's a lot of pressure to have sex the first time, and there should not be.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you gotta do.
I actually wanted, this might sort of derail the conversation a little bit, but I was impressed with this book's handling of that kind of situation. And again, I know I've mentioned this on the show before, but like, I did not attend a public high school, so I only know from like what I've learned and heard from other people. But it seems like there is a lot of pressure to like have sex and everything like that. And I'm just like, I thought it was interesting how, I guess, sort of that like Maeve and Knox acknowledging that there was pressure and like this outside pressure of like, well, if we're dating, I guess we have to have sex, right? Otherwise it's not like a real relationship or something like that. And it was just, I think that is not an easy conversation to have in books. And I thought it was very well handled without beating the reader over the head and saying like, there should not be this kind of social pressure. And it was just kind of like, you saw these characters kind of dealing with that and the fallout of it.
And I have two things I kind of want to add to that conversation. One being that I can't remember if it was Maeve or Knox, and Maeve and Knox who both said like the way we talked about it, it was so clinical that no wonder it didn't happen the way it was always, air quotes, supposed to happen. Because they talked about it very practically. And then one of the people that was like the most supportive of Knox was a female character, right? And she's kind of known for sleeping around. And she was like, okay, so what? It didn't work. Move on. Let's get going. Right. And I thought that was very sweet.
I was going to add something to that, but I think we'll get to it later. So I'm going to be quiet about it for right now.
Okay. I think we should save the dad discussion until we talk about Nate's involvement in the story.
Yeah.
So if we want to talk about Phoebe, we can.
I was going to say, let's talk about Phoebe since you just alluded to her anyway.
Yes. Love Phoebe.
So Phoebe is one of those characters where I start off thinking, I don't know how I feel about this character. And then I end up liking them. So that's where it falls on the Rachel continuum of Maggie liking characters.
You're welcome.
We'll publish this in a scientific journal somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, someday. But I really liked Phoebe. She very much reminded me of Addie, and she and Addie actually live in the same apartment complex.
Yes.
But Phoebe has an older sister named Emma and a younger brother named Owen, and they are important to the story because they're always kind of around, and we see a lot of the story taking place in Phoebe's apartment because her dad died about 3 years earlier in an accident. So they had to downsize, and that is part of her journey throughout this entire story, is like traveling through the world without her dad in the picture anymore.
Her family used to be really close when they were growing up, and after her dad passed away, she and her siblings especially have really been distanced from each other in different ways. They're not really sure how to connect anymore, and there's a lot of other stress in their family. You know, their mom's I think she's trying to start a business, right?
Yeah, she wants to be like a wedding
planner. So she's trying to start this business, and it isn't that they don't like each other, it's just that their family has sort of fractured, and kind of navigating that situation.
And I think that they very much define their lives as like before the accident and after the accident.
Absolutely.
And like before the accident, everything was great and happy and they all loved each other. And then after the accident, she literally describes her dad as the glue that held the family together. So that's, I think, really emotional.
Yes. Yeah, that is some emotions right there.
Yeah. But Phoebe also works at the cafe that Luis's family owns, Cafe Contigo,
I think.
Yeah. Which I really want to go there and try their food because they talk about it a lot and it sounds delicious.
I was like, it is not often that I read a book that I'm like, ooh, this food sounds really good. This was one of them. Food sounded so good. I was like,
so good. I really want it. But that's a side point. Phoebe was the very first text of the Truth or Dare game, and her secret was that she had sex with her sister's boyfriend. However, sister and boyfriend had already broken up when they, being boyfriend and Phoebe, had sex. So just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
The boyfriend wasn't cheating on one sister with the other. They were already done.
Right.
And during the course of this,
still not something you want to do necessarily,
no.
But at least it's not quite as worse as it could have been, I guess.
During the course of this story, she's also with another character named Brandon.
Brandon
is like a mini Jake from the last one.
But I think he's dumber.
Oh yeah.
Like, not that Jake's the sharpest tool in the shed, but Brandon is just dumb.
Yes, Brandon is not very intelligent. He's also not very like
aware of anyone
people's feelings or existence. And nobody in the Lawton family likes Brandon because he does some sketchy stuff. But we do have, are you okay if I shift the conversation?
Yeah, let's keep moving along.
Yeah, so just some of our returning characters. Bronwyn is there. She's currently at Yale, but ventures back to Bayview twice during the course of the story and is on again, off again with Nate. Cooper Clay is still kind of in the area playing baseball, obviously, still super close with everybody else. And we get to see more of Chris, his boyfriend. Love it. Addie is there. She lives near the Lawtons and is going to be the maid of honor in Ashton and Eli's wedding, which is being planned by the Lawton mother, Mrs. Lawton. So Addie, Ashton, and Eli are all part of it. And because Knox works at Until Proven, which is the organization Eli heads. We see that relationship between Eli and Knox begin and develop. And they're currently working on a police misconduct case, and the entirety of Until Proven is constantly kind of receiving threats against them.
Yes. And there have been some ones specifically targeted at Eli. I don't think we get those spelled out as some of the other threats, but one of the other characters mentions like Eli has gotten specific threats and specific like targeted hate towards him.
Yes. And it is specifically mentioned that a lot of it, when specifically targeted at Eli, is very anti-Semitic.
Yes, that is right. I forgot about that detail.
Yes. But we have the return of Nate Macaulay, my favorite. My favoritism only gets stronger in this book.
I know. I want to start with my comment, and then we can talk about the important stuff. I called Nate the resident punching bag because I feel like every time something bad happens, it happens to Nate, which may just, I don't think it's necessarily a problem with the book. I just think that he often finds himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't know.
I am gonna stick with my comment from the last one of he has a very strong moral compass and still feels like he ends up on the wrong side.
Yes, I concur with that. And so Nate in this book, he's graduated like the rest of the Bayview Four, and he now works in construction specifically for the construction company owned and run by Knox's father. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. Phew.
And that leads to a lot of resentment in Knox's case because Knox's dad is always talking about Nate.
Yes. Yeah, I think, because I wanted to talk about this. I do think it's a little bit comedic because Knox sort of has this weird resentment towards Nate, but Nate doesn't know any of this. He's just kind of living his life. And like he and Knox only interact like face to face once or twice in the book. And it's a very interesting, it's not funny like objectively, but it is a little bit like comedic in the ironic sense of like, and Knox fully acknowledges too, like it's not Nate's fault, but he still just feels this kind of like resentment, jealousy of, oh, so this kid is like, this guy is basically the son that my father wanted that I was not.
Right. And again, Nate has no idea that Knox
Nate's
feels
got no
this way.
clue. He never knows.
But we just love Nate. So he and Bronwyn are kind of off again, on again, which drives me a little crazy because it's coming from Bronwyn's side. But Nate tells Maeve that he knows that he and Bronwyn are endgame and that they will eventually end up together. And like not in a creepy way, in a very sweet, like endearing, like she's going to keep doing this, but I know that we're solid.
And I do want to say, I feel like I'm like, I'm like Bronwyn's attorney or something like that. Like, but I will say in her defense, I think she's also struggling with her transition from high school to college. Specifically, I mean, in a lot of ways in that she has gone across the country.
Literally.
Like, she has gone across the country. She has completely been removed from her support system. And she's kind of struggling, like, do I really want to be at Yale? Like, I think she kind of has these conversations, like, she comes back to visit a lot, which also I keep thinking about all the amount of time that she's come back to visit her family during the book. Like, she's got to be flying because there isn't a proper public transportation system in the United States, which is expensive. Like,
yes, but you also have to remember her family is fairly well off.
Right. But I like that kind of boggled my mind a little bit. I was like, wow, imagine like just having money that you could just go on a flight across the country at the drop of a hat.
Also, I would like to point out, because most of my family does live in Seattle and we fly out to Seattle almost every year. My mom gets tickets for like $12.
That is
So
impressive.
there are ways to fly cheaply on not terrible flight
Airlines.
networks. Yes, airlines. Couldn't think
Flight
of a word.
networks.
Did you understand what I was saying?
Yes.
Therefore, I got my point across.
Fair enough. But yeah, I do think Bronwyn's kind of struggling with a lot of things that we don't really get to see. And quite frankly, I think that's kind of her problem. Like she's got to work this out. And I think to some extent, Nate also realizes that, which is why he isn't as worried. I think about them. He's just kind of like, she's dealing with her own crap. She'll figure it out eventually and it'll all work out. Sort of like almost the reverse of the end of One of Us is Lying. I won't go into more detail, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think part of what helps Bronwyn with her decision, because they're fine. Like they end up fine. That's not a main plot point, so I don't feel bad saying that.
I agree.
One of the dares that one of Phoebe's friends gets is to kiss one of the Bayview Four. And Nate is the one who gets kicked.
He probably does get kicked at some point during the book, though.
This is true. Nate's the one who gets kissed. It was not consensual. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah. And it was in front of everybody else.
Yes, including Bronwyn.
Although Bronwyn was kind of a doofus in that scene, and Maeve calls her like Bronwyn's. I think this happened at the end of One of Us is Lying, right? She kind of had a thing with that mathlete guy, and then ended it, or something or other. It's like, girl needs to get her mind together, but whatever. And so when Bronwyn comes back to visit, Cooper is also in town. So the Bayview Four want to have like their little like a little tiny reunion basically with like them and some of their close friends. And it ends up getting blown way out of proportion because Cooper is there and everyone wants to see Cooper. But when they're getting together, Bronwyn invites Mathlete, whatever the heck his name is. I don't even remember.
He's not invited to the party.
Oh, does he?
He just shows up. So Bronwyn went to Yumiko's house to watch a Marvel movie, which was not Iron Man. That was specified. It wasn't Iron Man. And Evan, who's the guy, picks her up and takes her. And then she leaves her sunglasses in his car. So he shows up at the dinner unexpected to return her sunglasses.
Then what am I thinking of the thing that Maeve called her out on? I read this book like a month ago. It was
for taking the ride to Yumiko's house.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. So
Evan shows up and then the friend barges into the room, kisses Nate, and then walks away.
And Evan's thinking, ooh, here's my chance. There must be something going on with Nate and Bronwyn. Well, screw you, Evan. Get a hobby. That isn't doing math.
So
I'm serious.
I got feelings.
Listen, I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna get up on my soapbox real quick. A lot of the problems in books would be solved if people just had better hobbies. I think Rachel's
I thought
joking.
You were gonna say if people had better communication, because my least favorite trope is miscommunication,
which is not in this book. Just so we're clear.
No.
I hate. Someone once pointed out to me, this is a tangent, or not to me specifically. I read this on the internet somewhere. It was not a conversation that I had, but miscommunication used for drama is dumb, but miscommunication for comedic effect is hilarious, which I can agree with.
Yes. This book is not meant to be comedic, but also does not use miscommunication in that way.
Yes. Right. But yeah, I do think people just need hobbies that aren't like, murdering.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that. We shouldn't kill people.
What a concept.
So some more new characters. We have Brandon, who hooks up with Phoebe. He ends up taking a dare. and something happens. And that's not really a spoiler because it opens up with a character dying and then we flash to the future. Brandon's the character who dies. That's not a big reveal. It's fine. And then there's Sean, who is filming Brandon doing his dare when Knox walks in on it all happening. That's really hard for me to say. He punches Knox and gives him a concussion. The poor baby.
Poor Knox.
He deserves so much more than he gets. And then we also have Emma and Owen Lawton, who are siblings to Phoebe. Emma's older, Owen's younger. He's in middle school, and Emma is a senior in high school.
Can we backtrack a little bit real quick?
Yes, please.
I wanted to talk about Eli real quick because I had more things to say about him. Yes. First of all, anytime so we see a lot more of Eli because Knox works at his organization. And even though Knox and Eli don't interact as much, at least at the beginning, like we still get to see Eli more through Knox's perspective, right? So first of all, every time that Eli talks about his upcoming wedding to Ashton, it just makes me so happy because so cute. It's really adorable. And I don't say that often. But I was also so I don't think it's a spoiler to say, like, over the course of the book, Knox ends up working with Eli a little bit more. Like he helps Until Proven get a little bit more organized in some areas. And Eli takes notice and he's like, hey, like, this is really good. I really liked that Eli kind of became a good male role model for Knox. Not that Knox's father is a bad role model. It's just because Knox doesn't really feel that kind of connection with his father for most of the book. And it was nice for him to, I felt like it was really nice for him to have a sort of similar presence in his life. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you get what I mean, right?
Yes, I do get what you mean. And I'm trying to find the part where I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Regardless, Knox is talking to Eli and Eli's like, yeah, I didn't date anyone until I was 19. Like nobody paid any attention to me.
That's the part I was thinking of. Yeah.
And Knox is like, wait, like he almost has this moment of like, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that just made my heart like, he's like, there's hope that I'll find someone later on. And that just makes my heart happy. Because there is a lot of hope for Nate. Like Nate for Knox. He's not broken. So that just makes me feel things.
I liked that too.
So that, I think, unless you have something else you want to add about anyone else, I think that concludes our character discussion. So before we get into the spoiler discussion, I did find the quote, so I want to read it because I think it's important. So Eli just got off the phone with Ashton, and Knox is like, yeah, Ashton's awesome, like you really lucked out. And Eli goes, luckiest guy on the planet, he says. He steeples his fingers under his chin and gives me a thoughtful look. I can tell you one thing, though. High school me couldn't have imagined that someday I'd be building a life with somebody as fantastic as Ashton. Back then, the only time girls paid any attention to me was when they wanted help with their homework. I didn't even have a date until I was 19. Really? Oh yeah, Eli shrugs. Takes a while for some of us. Good thing life is long and high school is short, although it doesn't feel like that at the time. And I think that just really resonates with
Mm-hmm.
Knox because he's feeling broken, right? Everybody's
Right.
making fun of him because he couldn't get it up when he wanted to.
Right.
So Eli's like, yeah, I was a total dweeb in high school, but now I've got this awesome fiance and we're going to get married. And that gives me the feels.
I liked that a lot. And I forgot the part where he says, good thing life is long and high school is short, even though it doesn't feel like it, because that's relatable. I feel like I could also say, good thing life is long and college is short, even though it does not feel like it.
Good thing life is long and school is short.
Yep.
So,
spoiler warning.
Karen M. McManus. This woman gives you all the twists and turns you might possibly want in a story. So before we get like into specific plot points, I just want to say I feel like this book is paced kind of oddly.
Yes.
Because like the first half is almost slow. And then we get into the second half and it's like boom, 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 end.
Yeah,
like,
it felt like,
huh?
It felt like we were on a roller coaster that was taking a long time to get up the first hill. And like it got stuck a few times. And then, but when we got to the top, we were like, pew, right down the hill. Yes. Do you like my sound effects?
They're very nice sound effects.
And I don't like it. Yeah, it felt odd.
I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
But this was not a 5-star read for me.
Neither was it for me. And I think it had more to do with the plot itself. I did not find it as engaging necessarily, or as, I don't know. The characters really sold the book on me.
Yes.
For this one.
I would describe this as a character-driven book.
Absolutely. I don't think so I mean, now that we're talking about spoilers, so Brandon dies and turns out the whole truth or dare game was essentially created in order to kill Brandon, because to injure Brandon, sorry. Because as it turns out, Brandon this is unwound slowly over the book. I'm again giving the condensed version. So Brandon is the one who caused the accident that killed Phoebe's father. And Phoebe's older sister, Emma, makes a deal with this stranger on the internet that
this is why we don't talk to strangers on the internet.
Ain't that the truth? She makes a deal with this person on the internet that this person will arrange for Brandon to be injured if she helps this person. If Emma, sorry, I blanked on her name for a second. If Emma helps this person get revenge against Eli.
Yes, but she doesn't know that this guy wants revenge on Eli. I'm just going to kind of rehash events real fast.
Okay.
Start of the timeline, not necessarily start of the book. Emma knows that Phoebe had sex with Emma's ex-boyfriend. Shortly thereafter, she finds out that Brandon is the reason her dad is dead. And this is all post Simon Kelleher dying.
Right.
She then finds the revenge forum that Simon was a part of and starts talking to this guy who goes by the tag The Darkest Mind. They start talking one-on-one and plotting this kind of revenge scheme using the information about Phoebe having sex with her ex-boyfriend to cause Brandon to get injured. She just wanted to take away his football career. That's all she wanted. And as soon as she realized, so they used Phoebe first. As soon as she realized, she being Emma, the damage that was going to be done, she pulled out. But the darkest mind kept going. And he wanted Emma's access to Eli because Emma's mom was planning Eli and Ashton's wedding to take revenge on Eli because of the case that Eli, and until proven, had been handling directly implicated his older brother.
Right.
Oh,
it's a lot.
This whole book is just, it's almost like the Hatfields and the McCoys, right? Feuding families.
Yeah.
But like the most roundabout version of it.
I think I found this book to almost be more complex than One of Us is Lying. And I don't know if, in some ways I didn't mind, but in other ways it felt a little bit much. Like it felt like there were more connections to things than felt realistic.
Yes.
But again, I don't think that is a major flaw with the book. It was just something that I noticed. I think what really made me like One of Us is Lying was that there was a lot happening, but it was almost one of those instances where the beauty was in the simplicity.
Yes. And this book, you almost need a conspiracy board to see how everything lays out. Say it.
A conspiracy board?
A conspiracy board.
She saw my face and I was trying so hard not to say it.
Story behind that.
I was going to say, do we want to provide context?
Yes, I'm writing my own murder mystery, and we were like sleep drunk, that like sleep deprived point of no return. And I tried to say conspiracy board, and it came out as conspiracy board, and it has stuck. It made it into the book, and it is apparently now in our everyday lives. Yes.
So now you too can say conspiracy board, and nobody will know what you're talking about.
Until my book is eventually published and it becomes a bestseller.
That's of course.
Gonna happen. It's never gonna happen.
Not with that attitude at
all. But I might make a conspiracy board for this and post it on Instagram, because I think
that would be really cool.
I think that would be worth my time.
Absolutely. You can get the red string and everything.
But in the course of these events, Emma stops talking to the darkest mind, whose name I think is Jason. I can't remember, and I feel bad.
I don't know, and I don't really care.
We only know his name for about like 50 pages.
Yeah.
Like it is
most of the time we know him as the darkest mind.
Yes. So he ends up taking out this area of a construction zone and then challenges Brandon to a dare in that location. Brandon falls through the ceiling and dies, which is tragic and traumatic, with his friends there. And Sean, his best friend, is filming it, and they're with two other girls, and none of them move when he falls. Like they might move towards him, but they don't have any reaction. And Knox is there, and Knox is trying to like get them to do something.
Yeah.
And Sean punches him so hard he gets a concussion. That poor boy.
Why does he punch Knox again?
To prevent Knox from like telling anyone. Like running over there to help Brandon, to call 911, to get people there to account for them being there. Because Sean and the girls end up framing it as, oh, it was an accident. We were cutting through the area. And then Nate McCauley, my boy Nate, is looking at the pictures because Knox's father's construction company is helping with the investigation. And Nate's like, there are no supports here. They used to be here. You can see where they used to be, but there were none here. So that's the first moment of, oh, Maybe somebody wanted Brandon dead.
But why would somebody want Brandon dead? Then things start to.
Then it's discovered that he was the reason that Phoebe's dad died, and Knox and Maeve were like, oh my gosh, did Phoebe kill Brandon? And Phoebe's like, no, but my sister's now in the hospital for alcohol poisoning because she almost choked on her own vomit. So she and her mom are dealing with Emma, the sister, when the rehearsal dinner is going on. And at the rehearsal dinner, Maeve and Knox were following this guy who had been stalking Phoebe and realized he planted a bomb under the deck of the rehearsal dinner. So Knox and Maeve get the bomb out of there, throw it over a fence, I think, and then realize Nate and Bronwyn are on the other side, and they're like, run, run, run. So Maeve and Knox make it safely, but Bronwyn and Nate aren't far enough away. So Nate uses himself as a human shield.
Which is, again, why I'm saying that he's the resident punching bag.
That boy deserves better.
I also feel like it's important to clarify Nate and Bronwyn weren't just there by coincidence. They were actually at the rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
And they snuck out.
Yes. Everybody who was there, minus the bad guy, was supposed to be there. Like Maeve and Knox were even supposed to be there. So then they end up in the hospital because there was just a bomb that went off with shrapnel.
Yep.
And Nate's in surgery. Everybody else is just waiting in the ER when Phoebe finds out. So she runs from Emma's room to the ER to figure out who's injured, make sure everybody's okay. Everybody's fine. Nate's in surgery, getting the shrapnel removed. He's fine. He ends up fine.
Nate is fine.
And she gets called back up to Emma's room and is investigated by the same officer who interrogated Bronwyn in One of Us is Lying.
I didn't pick up on that.
I did on my reread. Did not pick up on it the first time. And he kind of starts hounding her for answers to his questions. And then we just hear Emma kind of pipe up from her bed. This is the first time she's really conscious after the alcohol poisoning. And I was like, actually, it was me. And she had disguised herself online as Phoebe because she was mad at Phoebe, trying to get revenge on Brandon for being the reason their dad is dead. And this is all happening in the second part of the book. It
happens very quickly.
Yes. So in the end, it turns out that Emma had tried to stop talking to this guy, and most of his actions were of his own doing. But then the conversation picks up after Emma says, I'm not talking to you anymore. And
so Emma tells the darkest mind that, like, she's cutting things off. She says, I'm not talking to you anymore, blah, blah, blah. And then they find text message records that, like, no, then Emma did come. Emma and the darkest mind did keep talking, and that was when they hatched a plan for something. I forget what happened after that.
It's the to injure Brandon, like to kill him.
Okay.
And then Emma will kill Eli.
But Emma repeatedly denies that she continued talking to him, even though the text records say otherwise.
Correct. And at the end, we find out who was continuing the conversation, because it was not Emma.
And it was not Phoebe.
It was Owen, the little brother who's in 6th grade.
And the reason that they figure it out is, as they're looking through the text records, Emma and Phoebe both realize that Emma, in quotation marks, made the same spelling mistake that Owen made earlier in the book.
Yes. His name is Jared. I found.
Oh, okay. Jared.
I also want to read this paragraph because I think it's super important. Because throughout the book, they had talked about how Phoebe and Emma used to be so close that they could talk without saying any words. And then they kind of lost that ability. They didn't even talk to each other all that much.
Right.
I didn't move except to shift my gaze toward Emma, waiting for her reaction. She meets my eyes again, and for the first time in years, we have a conversation with no words. Just like we used to when we were kids, reading the thoughts written across one another's faces, invisible to anyone else, but perfectly clear to us. They're not going to say what they know. They are not going to say that their little 6-year-old 12 or 6th grade 12-year-old brother is the one who did it.
Yep.
And Maggie, I know you said you have feelings about this. So what are your feelings? Then I'll talk about my feelings.
I kind of want to hear what you have to say first.
I probably would have that same conversation with pure facial expressions with any of my siblings. If I found out that one of them might be implicated in a murder.
Yeah.
If my siblings are listening to this, please don't murder anyone.
That's a very important caveat there. Like I'll support you, but like, please don't.
Yeah, please don't make me do that.
I think I don't necessarily want to say they did the quote unquote right thing, but I think they did the thing that most people would do in that situation. Because they just end up saying like,
anyone could have done that.
Yeah. They're just like, we don't know who this could have been. It could have been anybody. You know how easy it is to hack cell phones, which is probably true. I think the thing that kind of bugs me about it is I shouldn't say, obviously there is a stark difference between Emma and Jared, the darkest mind, right? There is a very distinct difference between these two people. But I also kind of felt like Emma did not necessarily, other than her hospitalization, which I don't think is quite the same thing. I didn't feel like she had to face the consequences of her actions.
So it's kind of the kind of the commentary it's making is very much related to people being responsible for cyberbullying. And if somebody dies by suicide after that, right? That's kind of been a major discussion in high school, in like high school spheres, right? Of, hey, this person died by suicide after being cyberbullied online, and this person literally saying, hey, go kill yourself. And that's kind of what this is making commentary on, except instead of it being self-inflicted, it's other-inflicted. The book does very overtly talk about death by suicide because there are two characters technically that do die by suicide, and there is sexual assault sexual harassment in the book, and it's not a light book.
Yes. I actually kind of felt like this one was a little bit darker than the first one.
Yes, I can agree with that.
Not that One of Us is Lying is a light book either, but I felt this one felt, again, I don't know if I would not say that this is strictly a criticism. I just did not feel like this one just felt messy. And messy is not really,
like it was trying to provide commentary on too many things.
Yes. And I felt like this one showed a little bit more of, this one just had a little bit more of human ugliness in it than I think One of Us is Lying did. Because the whole thing with Brandon, we didn't really talk about this, but like the whole thing with Brandon is he caused this accident. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to skim over things briefly. So so Phoebe and Emma and Owen's father worked at this, what was it, like a factory of some kind?
Granite countertop
Granite
cuttery?
counter. Yeah. He did things with large rocks.
Yes.
And this business was owned by Brandon's father, and Brandon was at the place one day and just kind of fooling around and causing chaos, and he was using some heavy machinery, and his misuse of that machinery, because he was unsupervised, ended up killing the Lawton's father. And Brandon never got in trouble for it. He never had to face consequences for that, partly because he was a minor, but also partly because I think they used the argument of, go ahead. No, you go ahead. You know better than me.
I was just going to say, somebody in the book literally makes the comment, well, if you're wealthy, rich, white, and male, you can get away with anything.
Mm-hmm. And he did.
And he was wealthy, rich, white, and a male.
Yeah. And he had his father advocating for him and be like, well, he didn't mean it, which is a very, and again, because we're going to put trigger warnings in front of this, that felt very eerily reminiscent to what happens in a lot of sexual assault and cases. It's like, well, he didn't mean it. Like, are you going to ruin his life just because he did this? And I felt like that was an ugly part of humanity that did not necessarily get touched on in One of Us is Lying. Not that that's a bad thing or a good thing, just like, that's what I mean when I say this book is almost uglier in some ways, because it felt like, yeah. I don't know what else to say to that.
Again, I think part of it is because the pacing was a little weird. I think if we had more of that fast pacedness of the second part and the first part, it wouldn't have felt so empty in its commentary. But I think it did a surprisingly good job talking about like Maeve's medical journey and not wanting to talk about how like she was starting to have nosebleeds again and she was randomly getting bruises, which are all symptoms of relapsing from leukemia.
Right.
So that occurred in the whole like first half, which was, I thought, quite wonderful.
Yeah. And her stressing about like, she doesn't want to tell her parents because she doesn't want to worry them. She doesn't want to worry Bronwyn. How is she? But she can't really do anything because she can't really get tested without parental consent because she's a minor and all kinds of things. So like, I felt like that was really well done. There were the few criticisms that I have do not take away from the fact that this was still a really well-written book and had a really did a really good job, I think, with how the characters are portrayed and their journeys and their own individual arcs.
I agree. There is one more scene I want to talk about before we close out.
Yes, let's do it.
I want you to guess what scene I want to talk about.
And it's one that we haven't touched on yet.
And it is one we have not touched on yet.
Is it the scene where they're at the game?
No, but that's a good one.
I was going to say, because Cooper's grandma is there, isn't she?
Love Cooper's grandma. Yeah,
she comes back and
she's like heckling the batters. Love that. But no, that is not the scene. It does not involve any of the characters at that scene either.
I don't know.
The rooftop scene.
Oh! Yes, please elaborate. Also, I don't know if you can hear it. I think the people downstairs are hammering something somewhere, so I hope you can't hear that. But if you can, that's what's going on.
Again, it shows that we're human and like normal people.
Yeah.
But after the wedding of Eli and Ashton, also, side note about that, at the end, when they are introduced for the first time as a couple, they are introduced as Eli Kleinfelter and Ashton Prentice. Couldn't remember their last name. She kept her last name, and I thought that was a really sweet touch.
I liked.
Just wanted to point that out. But after the wedding, which Knox had attended, Phoebe did not, because this is after the whole thing with Emma, like confessing and stuff.
She's got a lot going on.
She got a lot going on. Knox brings her some cake, and Mrs. Lawton is like, oh yeah, she's on the roof. And Knox has a crippling fear of heights. So he goes up there and he's planning on like just standing in the center. But then Phoebe starts sobbing. And Knox is like, oh crap, I'm going to have to go over there and comfort her. So he walks to the edge and is like standing there comforting her. And then Phoebe is like, Knox, your heart is beating so fast. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm scared of heights. And she's like, I could have cried into your shoulder at the edge. And he goes, but you weren't, or at the center. He goes, but you weren't there. You were here. So then they like move towards the middle again. He's like, okay. And she goes, I thought your heart was beating so fast because of me. And he's like, he kind of has that like the loading screen on his brain. And
like
he's
the
like,
little spinning circle, like woo, woo, woo.
Like, I like you and I could definitely like you like that, but also like there's a lot going on in your life right now. And then she kisses him and he's like, while I really wish we could continue doing this, I don't want this to be a regret for you later, because right now you are reacting purely on emotion. And he goes, I will gladly kiss you again in a week or whenever this is over, but right now I don't think is the time. And that was just so sweet and pure and gentle. But also it comes full circle because he had a boner the entire time.
Important plot development.
I mean, it really is, considering
considering what happened
book.
At the beginning of the book.
Yeah, he was made fun of for not being able to get one, and now he has one, and it feels redemptive. It's a redemptive boner.
Wow, Rachel, you know what? I think those are two words that have never been strung together in a sentence before.
Do I feel bad for doing it that way? No. That whole scene felt very full circle.
Yes. In more ways than one.
Yes. And Phoebe had kind of talked about how, Knox is going to be super cute in a couple years.
He's going to get that glow up.
Yeah. I think she's coming to that realization of, I can still like somebody even if they aren't gorgeous now.
Yeah, I think I know what I was going to say. I just Knox being like, well, I guess I have to go over there, like, and like comfort her, like that just feels very relatable in the sense of like, well, I might suffer, but I need to like go take care of the other person right now. And like I was like, yeah, that's a whole mood. Like, why are you shaking? Oh, I'm like terrified of heights. It's fine. We're not talking about me. We're talking about you right now.
I have another scene we need to talk about because it comes full circle. It also involves Knox. Do you know what scene it is?
Oh, with his dad?
Yeah.
I think that was the moment where I was like, I think I might cry. Please refresh my memory of this scene. Sorry, my chair keeps clicking.
It's literally right after the kiss.
Good.
He has just walked home. I'm finding it because it's one of my favorite things. And everybody else in his house, so his mom is asleep. His dad is watching sports. He comes home. He's just trying to just go right upstairs, but his dad stops him. And Knox apologizes to his dad first for cutting through the construction site. And then his dad apologizes as well. He goes, well, you're 17. That's going to happen sometimes, I guess. I owe you an apology too. I should not have said that you're not a hard worker. I know that you are. And another thing, you were smart last night and brave. And even though I wish you'd kept yourself a little safer in the situation, I'm proud of what you did. I'm proud of you, period. Always.
I'm going to cry again. Sorry.
And Nate goes, or not Nate. Oh my gosh, I did it
Knox.
again. Knox.
Well, we know who Rachel's favorite is.
Knox goes, oh hell, I made it through the last 24 hours without crying. And now my dad, of all people, is going to make me do it. Then he'll probably take back everything he just said because I'm such a wimp. Before I lose it, though, Dad sets his beer down on the accent table, lets out a choked sob of his own, and yanks me into a bone-crushing hug, which hurt a little bit, but all things considered, worth it.
I was really glad that they got to have that moment.
Yes, and it was
because even though Knox has these sort of feelings that his father isn't proud of him, it is different from, I'll just use this as comparison's sake. It is different from the relationship that Cooper has with his father, where that is also a strained relationship, but there is a very clear point of tension.
Yes.
And what the difference is, like with Knox and his father, it's more that Knox just feels inferior because he has not not because anyone has told him he is, but because he hasn't received that sort of reassurance.
That validation.
I think. Yeah, validation is a better word for it. And so I was glad that they got to have that moment, because it's not that his father is a bad person or even really a bad parent.
Yeah.
It's just that there was not like that kind of communication, I guess. And I think it was also nice that there was that moment where Knox is like, great, I'm going to start crying and my dad's going to think I'm a wimp. And then his dad starts crying. And again, this is going to maybe show my age a little bit, but like the YA that I grew up with was very boys don't cry and men don't cry.
Yes.
And so this felt really nice to read. And I'm glad we're moving away from that.
Yeah. I think the first like soft boy character I remember reading would be Peeta from the Hunger Games.
Yeah. That would be one of the most early examples I can think of too, that I personally remember. I'm sure there were people before him.
Knox deserves the world. And of these three, I think Knox was kind of the punching bag.
Oh yeah. Poor Knox.
But overall, I think Nate
quite literally a punching bag.
Yes. But
any
last minute thoughts?
I was just going to say, I kind of hope, because I know that this is going to get a third book. If they bring back more of these past characters again, I kind of hope we would get to see Knox and Nate interact a little bit. Because I actually think a little bit more. Yeah. I think they would get along well in a weird way.
Yes.
Like Knox seems just weird enough that Nate would tolerate him.
I think that they would be friends in the we are total opposites, but we're still best friends kind of way.
Yeah.
And I live for that.
Yes.
Live for that.
So if it doesn't happen, somebody better write a fanfic for it and send it to me.
Please.
Please. I'm begging you.
Knox Myers and Nate Macaulay, the ultimate bromance.
The one we deserve. On that note, we should probably wrap things up, huh?
Yeah. You got any last minute thoughts, Maggie?
Good book. Should read.
Good book. Should read. This was a 4-star for me, and I am very happy.
Indeed.
Oh, Maggie.
Oh, Rachel.
What's our next episode?
Oh, our next episode. I will spare you the whole tale of us trying to decide what our next episode is going to be. So the next 2 episodes, I get to be the expert for once, and I am very excited. We are going to move on to another duology, which is one of my favorites. It is Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. And so, yeah, next episode, we're going to talk about Vicious. I'm going to reread it and make some notes. It's going to be the first time that I've read it in a couple years. So I'm very excited to get into it. Rachel's going to be reading it for the first time, and I'm so excited. I am prepared for her confusion because it will probably be a little bit confusing at the beginning, but it's fine. We'll work through it. And we'll do it all for you, our dear listeners. So be sure to.
I also just want to point out that when we are reading something that the other person has read, we are like giving each other play-by-plays.
Yes, absolutely. All the time.
So please make sure you come back to hear our discussion about Vicious. And then the next one will be Vengeful. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited.
I am very excited. So yeah, in the meantime, I will just give our little plugs. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Book Expert Pod. And you can also email us at notthebookexpert@gmail.com. And I think that's it. If you like our show, send us a message, leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. We are pretty much everywhere now. I've been double checking over the last couple of days. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, whatever else you use, it's there. So yeah, Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. I can't stop the recording.